Okay, so let's see about finishing up this clock here if we can. Alright, so next thing I need to do is create this area here where the actual clock piece is that tells time. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's go to not the front view here, but we'll go to a left view. Hit L on the keyboard to do that quickly. Alright, and let me go also to the wireframe view. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create myself a circle. So I'm going to go with something like this, just for the moment. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go to, let me just try to position this roughly here. It's got to be something about this size here looks pretty good. Yeah, I'd say about this size looks pretty good for this. So I'm going to go with that. And let me go back to my perspective view here. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to get this centered a little bit better with this piece that's right there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the align tool here. I'm going to select the clock base piece, and I'm going to align it in the, let me see, I want to align it in the Z axis and the Y position, or maybe just the Y position. I don't even want to align it in the X. Yeah, so I'll just go with the Y position here, and center and center is good. I'm going to hit OK. If I go back to left view here, turn off the grid, I can see it's centered up pretty good. Now, I don't want it to be in the middle here. I want it to be a little bit higher like this. So closer to what the image looks like. Although again, it's just reference image. We don't have to go exactly by the image. Okay, so with this thing done here, since this thing has to look nice and round, I'm going to go to the interpolation parameters, and I'm going to make sure that I set my interpolation pretty high. It's going to have to be something like 12. This has got to look nice and round. Okay, I'm going to convert this to an editable poly. And we can't really see it right now, so let me take this guy and make him see-through. And let me see if I can select this guy back here. Okay, there he is. I'm going to take its polygon in here, and I'm actually going to reduce its size just a little bit because I want to get more the size of this white round piece that's in here. Okay, see that? That kind of white circle in the middle. And I'm going to maybe scale it to about right here is pretty good. And I'm going to extrude this out. I'm going to bring it out so it just barely passes just past the glass right there. And I'm going to extrude again just a little bit like this. And maybe about this much is pretty good. Then I'm going to select those two polygons that are right there. I'm going to select their loop that goes all the way around this guy here. I'm going to go to the extrude tool options, extrude by local normal. And I want to extrude a good amount. Something like this looks pretty good. Okay, so I've got that kind of a distance right there. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select those two polygons and select their loop. And I'm going to extrude these polygons out to about right here. Looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to take this polygon that's, this edge I should say, it's right here. Select its ring. I'll probably just collapse that so I end up with just those edges right there that make up this sort of fine edge. So I'm going to select this edge here, I don't want to select its ring, I want to select the loop. And with that loop selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chamfer that, and I'm going to make that nice and round. So I'm going to chamfer this and give it a good amount of it. I'm going to push it all the way, okay? And give it maybe about 7 segments actually looks pretty good. So something like that. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. Now because I pushed the chamfer all the way to the edges, I know I have to select all the vertices here. Go to the weld options and knock the weld down to 0. You can see it went from 676 vertices to 582. So I'll hit OK. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to select all the polygons at this point, and I'm going to auto smooth them just to get that out of the way. Okay, if I render this out, that's what I have. Okay, next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this guy that's right here, and I'm going to go ahead and see about maybe extruding this in on itself. So let's take this, and let me see. If I move this, it's already part of the mesh right there. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to take it and I'm going to inset it. And I'm going to inset to about, let me see how much I want to inset here. Let me go ahead and scale this down. Just keep scaling it down. So I get something about right here, looks pretty good. Okay, and the reason I want to do that is because I'm going to use this little piece of geometry right there, and I'm going to extrude it out. Basically, if I zoom in here, I want to create this little piece here where the minute, second, and hour hands are going to connect to. So I'm going to take that to about right there. Maybe inset it just a little bit like that. Pull it just a little bit. Maybe extrude it out just a little bit like this. And then maybe I'll go ahead and extrude it just a little bit and scale it down just a little bit so it makes kind of an inset right there like that. Okay. Alright, so that's where my hour hand, minute hand, and second hand are going to be located. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to take this edge here and select its ring all the way around. I'm going to connect that one time, and I'm going to take the slide parameter. I'm going to slide that to almost the outer edges, something like this. I'm going to hit OK. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take that same edge and I'm going to chamfer it. I'm going to chamfer it with one segment. I'm going to chamfer it a very, very small amount. Just a tiny bit, like something like this. Okay, so it's barely even visible. Now I'm going to take this polygon that I have at the end right here, and I'm just going to grow the selection until I have all of these polygons selected here. And I'm just going to push this back. I'm going to push it back to about right here. Looks pretty good. Okay. Okay. So I'm basically going to end up with something like this. Alright. Let me take all the polygons. I'm going to do an auto smooth. Usually you do this at the end because I'm still going to be editing this. But just so I can get a good feel for what this is looking like. Okay. Alright. Now with that done, what I need to do now is create the minute, hour, and the second hand right there. So how am I going to do that? Well, I can do that pretty easily here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this polygon that I have right here, and this is going to be perfect to do this with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rip it off, make it a new object. I'm going to select it here, maybe change its color to something else. Okay, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to take that polygon right there, and I'm going to go ahead and extrude it. Pull the extrusion out. About this much is perfectly fine. Something like this will work out just good. I'm going to select that border of edges back there and cap it. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create that second hand right there. So the way I'm going to do that is actually pretty easily. I'm going to select this element here and I'm going to scale it in the Z and the Y axis. So it's going to scale out to about this much. Looks pretty good. And if I move that in here, you can see what I have. So maybe something like this looks pretty good. And I'll move that to about back here. This is where I'll put the second hand all the way in the back. Maybe I'll scale that out just a little bit like that. Okay. Now I'm going to take this object here and I'm going to rip it off, make a new object. And I'm going to rip off a second one and make a new object. Okay. And you'll see why I did that a little bit later. Basically, so that I can have those set up for the hour hand and for the minute hand. So I'm going to take this guy here. And I'm going to take a couple of polygons here. Maybe I'll take these two on the top. I'll go to the extrude tools. And I'm not going to do by local normal. I'll do it by group. And I'll hit OK. And I'm going to bring that up. And I know the second hand has to be the longest, so I'll bring it up something like this. Looks pretty good. And from a distance when it renders out, it actually looks pretty nice. Okay, so it's pretty simple. That was the easy one to do. Now we need to do the other ones here, like the the minute hand, and then we'll do the hour hand. So I'm going to take the minute hand here. I'm going to scale this out just a little bit like so. And actually, no, not too much, not too much. Let's bring it in a little bit closer like that. And the minute hand is going to be similar to the second hand in terms of the width here. I'm going to go ahead and extrude that again by group. Hit OK. I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to bring it up to about the same distance as the second hand, maybe a little bit farther, something like up to here looks pretty good, because you can see in the image it's a little bit longer. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and isolate the selection so I can work just on the minute hand. I have to do this little piece that's right there. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to select all these edges that are in the middle here, and I'm going to go ahead and connect that a couple of times. Take the slide parameter and place that at 0. I'm going to take the pinch here. You can see it right there. I'm going to take that pinch and reduce it to about this much and hit OK. And with that done right there, all I'm going to do is take this polygon that's on the side and the polygon on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and use the extrude tool options here. I want to extrude these out by local normal. I want to extrude them out about this much. Looks pretty good. So I'm going to hit OK right there. The next thing I want to do is I want to clear out this area in the middle. So I'm going to take this edge that's here and the one on the back side. I'm going to hit Control and Backspace to get rid of those edges. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, in edge mode, I'm going to go ahead and select all these edges. So the front ones and the back ones. And I'm going to use the connect tool here. I'm going to connect that 2 segments. And the pinch, I'm going to take the pinch to about here. Top and bottom to about right there. Okay. I'm going to take this polygon and the one on the back side, and I'm going to go up here to polygons, and I'm going to bridge those polygons together, basically to pop a hole in the middle. And then I'm going to just take these edges that are out here. Okay, so I'm going to take those. I'm going to scale them down, but what I want to do is I want to switch to selection center mode so I can scale them down like this. Okay, maybe I'll scale them in a little bit like so to make that a little bit skinnier. Scale them a little bit up again. And I'm going to use the chamfer tool here. I'm going to chamfer these guys pretty far, something like this. And I'm just going to add a couple of segments right there. So we have our minute hand. And hit OK. So we end up with something that looks like this. Okay, from a distance, it actually look pretty good. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit isolation mode and see what I have. If I render that out, that's what I have. Now it's a little bit small. I want to take this entire piece and move it up a little bit higher. So what I'm going to do is go to vertex mode with ignore backfacing turned off. Select all of these vertices and just move them up to about right here. Looks pretty good. Something like that looks pretty good. So I didn't move them up too high. Okay. Now what I want to also do is take these vertices, and I don't want to take these right here, the highest ones up here and the lowest ones down here. I want to deselect those, and I want to maybe just take the extrude tool and extrude that out just to emphasize that shape a little bit more so it's more visible. So maybe something like that. Okay, maybe I'll take all of them and I'll scale them like this just to make that piece a little bit bigger. Yeah, like that. See, that looks a lot better. I like that a lot better. Okay, so after fiddling that for a while, let's go ahead and let's do the same thing on the other side for the hour hand. Okay, I'm going to take this object here. I'm going to move this back like so to about right there. Looks pretty good. And again, I'm just going to take these 2 polygons that are right there. I'm going to extrude these out by group. Hit OK. And our hand is shorter, so it's going to go to about maybe right here. See that? Maybe a little bit more, something like this. about right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and isolate the selection. Now I can work on this. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select those edges in the middle. I'm going to connect them a couple of times. Take the slide, put it at 0. Take the pinch parameter to something like this. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is the same deal. I'm going to take these polygons on the sides. I'm going to go ahead and extrude those with the tool options by local normal. And this area has to be thicker, so I'm going to take it and extrude it out quite a bit. I'm going to exaggerate that by quite a good amount. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this edge on the corner up there and this edge on the opposite corner. I'm going to move these edges down like this. And I'm just going to use the scale tool to bring them in a little bit like this. Okay. And what I'll probably do is take these two edges on the bottom, extrude these in a little bit like this, maybe move them up a little bit like that. I'm going to take these two edges and those two edges, I'm going to connect those maybe in one time, 0 for pinch and slide, hit OK. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out like so, and then maybe pull it a little bit lower like this. Basically trying to rough out that shape that I need. Okay. So something maybe like this looks pretty good. I'm going to come back and grab these two edges. Scale them in a little bit to get something like this going. Okay. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'll probably just take those two edges that I just created. And I'm going to use the chamfer tool. And I'm going to chamfer that about this much, maybe add about one segment, hit OK. I know I have to retriangulate those polygons, so I'll come back to that in a moment. I'll chamfer this right here to about this much, and I'll add maybe about 3-4 segments to that. You don't want to add too many, so I end up with something like this. Okay. Alright. Now next thing I need to do is I need to punch in that hole in the middle there. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the front and back edges here, hit Control and Backspace to get rid of that. I'm going to take these edges, basically all of these, Control and Backspace to get rid of that. I'm going to take all the polygons and re-triangulate that right now just to fix that up. Then I'm going to take this polygon, the one in the back. I'm going to see about insetting those. I'm going to inset that by group or polygon, won't make a difference. I'm going to inset it to about this much right here, something like this. I'm going to hit OK. And let me see here. Let me go ahead and just scale these guys. I'm going to scale it down to about this much like this. To make this pointy over here, I'm going to take these edges here and collapse those. I'm going to take these, vertices, not edges. Now I'm going to take both of them, the ones on the front and the back, and just move them up like this, just to make that nice and pointy right there. And then it's simply a matter of taking those two polygons and just going to the bridge tool, bridging that together to pop a hole in there. And there we go, we end up with something like this. Okay, so I'm going to exit isolation mode, and this is what I end up with. Okay, pretty good. Alright, now the pivot point isn't where I want it to be for any of these objects, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to isolate selection on this guy. I'm going to come down here to this polygon, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to subdivision. I'm going to open up the tessellate settings here. I want to tessellate this one time. Okay, so I get that, and I want to switch to face mode, not edge mode, so make sure you switch to face mode. Tessellate this one time and hit OK, so that we have a vertex there in the middle. Okay, with that vertex, what we can do is go to our grid and snap settings, turn off grid point snapping, make sure you have vertex snapping turned on. Let's go to our pivot point here, and let's snap it to that middle vertex we just created. And what that allows us to do is whenever we rotate this guy, we can rotate it on that pivot point just like a clock. See that? That's very important. And now we're going to take the other one here and we're going to do the same exact thing. So I'm going to take this guy here. I'm going to go up to subdivision. I'm going to tessellate it on the face one time. Take its pivot point. Snap it right there. When I'm done, I'll exit isolation mode. Isolate the hour hand. Take that polygon, same deal. Tessellate it by face. Take its pivot point. Snap it right there. Exit isolation mode, and there we go. Now if I rotate these guys, they should rotate perfectly like a clock. Alright? So I can basically just turn this and place it at whatever position that I want to put whatever time of day that I want as well. And also just to randomize this and make it look a little bit more believable. So I could take this stuff, rotate it around, do something that's a little bit more randomized, more natural looking, something like that. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to say that I'm done with that part. I'm going to end this video here, and in the next one we're going to see how to actually create these numbers here out of pure geometry. That can be either textured or you can make some geometry out of it. I'm going to go ahead and make some geometry out of that in the next video.